What if you could subtly influence anyone, anywhere without trying to be charismatic, loud, or magnetic? Imagine guiding decisions and shaping perceptions so effortlessly that people lean toward your ideas without even knowing why. This isn't manipulation, and it's definitely not about pretending to be someone you're not. This is the psychology of effortless influence, a quiet, almost invisible form of persuasion used by people who understand how the human mind actually makes decisions. In this video, we're going deep into the subtle psychological levers that operate beneath awareness, the ones that shape trust, guide attention, and alter behavior long before words are ever spoken. Forget charisma. Forget flashy confidence. If you've ever felt unheard or overlooked, what you're about to learn will change the way people respond to you, naturally, consistently, and without force. Chapter 1. The Invisible Threads of Influence. Influence doesn't begin with words, posture, or presence. It begins long before any of that, in the quiet psychological undercurrents that shape how people perceive you before you've even opened your mouth. Most people think influence is loud, flashy, or rooted in charisma. But the truth? The most powerful influencers rarely look like they're influencing anyone at all. To understand effortless influence, you need to understand something fundamental. The human brain is constantly making judgments based on cues it isn't consciously aware of. Tiny signals, tone shifts, context, associations, expectations. All of these form the invisible threads that dictate how someone responds to you. Think about it. You've met people who immediately felt trustworthy, even before they said anything meaningful. And others? Something felt off, even though they were polite and friendly. That's the invisible layer at work. The brain reading, interpreting, and deciding faster than conscious thought can keep up. This chapter breaks down that hidden layer, not by teaching you how to perform, but by helping you understand how people naturally react and respond. When you understand these threads, you don't have to force influence. You simply align yourself with how the human mind already works. 1. Influence starts with perception, not words. Before people listen to what you say, they decide how to listen to you. Are you a threat? A leader? A peer? A helper? These classifications happen instantly and shape every interaction that follows. Effortless influencers understand this and focus on creating clarity, warmth, and grounded presence, not theatrics. 2. People follow what feels familiar, predictable, and safe. Humans are wired to conserve mental energy. If someone feels easy to understand, easy to read, and emotionally stable, the brain relaxes. And relaxed brains are more persuadable. This is why erratic people, even charismatic ones, often fail at long-term influence. 3. Influence is about guiding, not controlling. True influence isn't about overpowering someone's will. It's about creating an environment, emotional, psychological, or contextual, where your ideas feel like the natural choice. And the shocking thing? Most of these elements happen before a single argument or explanation is given. 4. The myth of the born influencer. You don't need to be extroverted, loud, charming, or socially dominant. Those traits can help, but they're not the source of real influence. Real influence comes from understanding psychological design, not personality. Effortless influence is learned. It's practiced. And once you understand how these invisible threads work, you'll realize how much power you've always had. You just hadn't activated it yet. Chapter 2. Priming the Canvas. How you shape perceptions before you even speak. Before influence begins, before ideas are exchanged, before words even form in your mouth, something far more powerful is already shaping the outcome of your interaction. Priming. Priming is the psychological phenomenon where people's thoughts, feelings, and decisions are guided by subtle cues they're not consciously aware of. It's like painting the background of a canvas before adding the main subject. The colors underneath completely change how the final picture is interpreted. In an influence, the canvas is always the other person's mind. Most people jump straight into persuasion. Arguments, explanations, passion, effort. Effortless influencers do something different. They prepare the mind first. They shape context. They manage expectations. They set emotional temperature. They prime the person to be receptive. This chapter shows you how. 1. The hidden power of persuasion. Influence doesn't start at the moment of conversation. It starts moments before. This is what psychologist Robert Cialdini calls persuasion, shaping someone's mental state so they become more open, more trusting, and more aligned with your message. Here's the secret most people never realize. If you control the frame, you influence the outcome. That means how you introduce a topic matters as much as the topic itself. The questions you ask before presenting an idea matter. Even the emotional tone you set matters hugely. For example, if you ask someone, "Do you consider yourself an open-minded person?" right before sharing a new idea, you increase their chances of agreeing dramatically. Not because the idea changed, but because they want to stay consistent with how they just identified themselves. That's priming. 2. The environment speaks before you do. Humans are unbelievably sensitive to context. Lighting, seating, positioning, scenery. All of these influence perception. A person sitting down while you stand, they subconsciously give you authority. A tidy, minimal workspace versus a chaotic, messy one. People attribute your character based on what they see. Even the clothes you wear, not fancy ones, but the consistency of your appearance, prime expectations. People trust what feels stable. The most effortless influencers don't rely on charisma. They rely on curated environments that speak for them. They know calm spaces make people more agreeable. Warm colors make people more relaxed. Soft lighting triggers openness. Order signals competence. Clutter signals chaos. Physical proximity increases trust. You're communicating long before your first sentence. 3. Emotional priming, setting the temperature of the room. Influence is easier when people feel safe, calm, and connected. It's nearly impossible when they feel anxious, defensive, or uncertain. Effortless influencers create emotional conditions that guide how others respond. They slow their breathing to make others mirror calmness. Keep their tone steady and warm. Maintain relaxed body language. Offer small signals of goodwill. Ask simple, grounding questions. Smile subtly, not performatively. Avoid quick movements or sharp gestures. These tiny actions shift the other person's nervous system. Before ideas are exchanged, the body is already primed for receptivity. 4. Priming through association, the brain's shortcut mechanism. The human brain loves shortcuts. If something feels familiar, safe, and aligned with past experiences, the brain becomes more willing to follow along. Effortless influencers use association to their advantage. Mentioning shared experiences, referencing mutual relationships, highlighting common goals, using stories instead of arguments, matching, not mimicking the other person's energy, using relatable language instead of technical jargon. These create the impression, this person is like me. And when people feel that, resistance melts. 5. The softest influence is often the strongest. The true power of priming is that it doesn't feel like influence at all. No pressure, no persuasion tactics, no emotional force, just subtle alignment. You're not pushing people toward an outcome. You're gently preparing the ground so your idea naturally fits. It's influence without resistance, guidance without friction, power without force. 6. Why most people fail at influence and don't realize it. Most people lose the influence game before it even begins because they rush into conversations unprepared, start persuading before shaping context, trigger defensiveness without realizing it, fail to manage emotional energy. Try too hard to perform. Forget how sensitive the human mind is to subtle cues. Effortless influence isn't about being impressive. It's about being intentional. The setup matters more than the speech. The frame matters more than the argument. The mood matters more than the message. Once you master priming, influence stops being something you do and becomes something you are. Chapter 3: The Architect of Trust, Reciprocity, Consistency, and Social Proof. Influence without charisma relies on one foundation above everything else. Trust. Not loud trust. Not, I'm confident, follow me trust. But quiet, steady, unshakable trust. The kind that makes people feel safe leaning into your direction without needing to be convinced. Most people think trust is built through big gestures, grand speeches, or impressive credentials. But in reality, trust is built through microsignals, tiny behaviors, repeated patterns, subtle psychological triggers that work beneath awareness. In this chapter, we dive deep into the three most powerful pillars of trust: reciprocity, consistency, and social proof. These principles work because they're wired into human psychology, regardless of personality type. Introverted? Extroverted? Doesn't matter. These levers work for everyone. Let's break them down. 1. The gentle power of reciprocity. Influence begins with giving. Humans are biologically programmed to return favors, not because society taught it, but because it's a survival instinct. When someone gives us something, attention, help, value, reassurance, we feel an automatic internal pressure to give something back. Effortless influencers understand this deeply. But here's the twist. The most effective reciprocity is subtle, unexpected, and unforced. You don't give to get. You give to make the relationship feel balanced and warm. Examples of quiet reciprocity. You remember a detail about their life. You make something easier for them without announcing it. You offer a small resource or insight without expecting credit. You validate their concern before sharing your idea. You thank them sincerely for something people usually overlook. These small gestures create a psychological pull toward cooperation. People start thinking, I want to listen to this person. They're good to me. You're not influencing through charm or performance. You're influencing through goodwill. And goodwill is magnetic. 2. Consistency, the silent language of reliability. If reciprocity creates warmth, consistency creates confidence. People trust what repeats. They trust what aligns. They trust what doesn't drastically shift every time they interact with you. This doesn't mean you need to be predictable in a boring way. It means your core identity stays steady. Effortless influencers display consistency in 3 critical areas. A. Consistency in behavior. Your tone is stable, not reactive. You're respectful even in conflict. You don't switch personalities depending on who's watching. People feel safe with someone who doesn't transform unpredictably. B. Consistency in values. You follow through on promises. You communicate honestly. Your actions match your words. When your values align with your choices, you become trustworthy without trying. C. Consistency in your presence. You don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be dependable in the moments that matter. This steady presence primes people to see you as stable, competent, and grounded. And in a world full of noise and inconsistency, stability becomes influence. 3. Social proof. Influence through the lens of the crowd. Even the most independent thinkers use social cues to guide decisions. It's human nature. We look around to confirm what's normal, what's acceptable, what's safe, what's valued. Effortless influencers leverage this subtly, without bragging or showing off. A. Quiet credibility. Instead of loudly announcing achievements, they let small, natural cues speak. Someone else mentions their success. Their work speaks for itself. Their reputation circulates without self-promotion. Quiet influence feels more genuine. B. subtle signals of competence. They don't need to tell people they're good. They demonstrate it through preparedness, clarity, calm responses, high standards, quality output. When people see consistent competence, they naturally trust your direction. C. Strategic association. Humans adopt the credibility of the people and environments they're connected to. Effortless influencers align themselves with high-quality peers, healthy communities, trustworthy individuals, positive environments, valuable networks. By association, they become someone others instinctively trust. 4. The triad working together. Trust on autopilot. When reciprocity, consistency, and social proof combine, something powerful happens. People trust you before they even consciously decide to trust you. You're no longer trying to influence. People invite your influence because it feels natural, safe, and aligned. This is why quiet influencers outperform loud ones long term. They're not exhausting to be around. They're not manipulating emotions. They don't demand attention. They don't rely on charm that may fade. Their influence is rooted in real psychological security. People follow those who make their world feel predictable, fair, and grounded. 5. Influence without pressure, the true advantage. Effortless influence is about reducing resistance, not overpowering it. You aren't forcing agreement. You're creating an environment where agreement feels comfortable. You aren't demanding trust. You're demonstrating behaviors that naturally generate trust. You aren't pushing your agenda. You're allowing your presence and actions to guide people voluntarily. That's why this chapter is called The Architect of Trust. You're building influence like a structure, brick by brick, gesture by gesture, interaction by interaction. Chapter 4. The dip, the drag, and the discipline DNA. There's a moment in every journey, whether you're training, studying, building a habit, or chasing a big dream, when things go from motivated to meh. It's that weird in-between stage where you're not a beginner anymore, but you're also nowhere near the finish line. That stage? Yeah, that's the dip. Some people panic. Some people quit. And some people, the rare few with discipline in their DNA, learn how to walk through it. Today's chapter is about that exact phase. The drag, the boredom, the confusion, the resistance, the quiet moments when your brain starts whispering, why are we even doing this? Let's break the whole thing down. 1. The dip isn't failure, it's the test. Here's the truth most people never hear. The dip is not a sign you're losing. It's a sign you're being tested. Motivation gets you started, but discipline is judged in silence. Think of a rocket. It burns the most fuel in the first few minutes, breaking gravity's pull. But once it's up, it glides. Your journey works the same way. Those early days of discipline feel powerful because everything is new, but eventually your mind adjusts. The honeymoon ends, and suddenly, you meet friction. This friction is not a wall. It's a filter. The dip separates people who want change from people who are becoming the change. 2. Your brain loves patterns, even the bad ones. You ever wonder why starting a new habit feels like upgrading your phone, but sticking to it feels like updating your phone software? One is exciting, one is annoying, but both are necessary. Your brain is basically a pattern machine. It selects routines because routines save energy. So when you try to change something, waking up earlier, quitting distractions, focusing more, your brain says, oh, why are we messing with my settings? The discomfort you feel isn't weakness. It's your brain adjusting its internal map. To build real discipline, you must be willing to feel temporarily misaligned, temporary confusion, temporary resistance, temporary weirdness. You're not breaking yourself. You're rewiring your autopilot. 3. The drag phase, where most people quit. The drag is like walking with weight around your ankles. Nothing's wrong. The world just feels heavier. This is the phase where the excuses show up dressed like logic. Maybe I should start tomorrow. Nothing bad will happen if I skip just today. I'm tired. I deserve rest. I'm not seeing results anyway. These excuses aren't stupidity. They're survival tactics. Your brain is trying to conserve energy, avoid discomfort, and return to the familiar. But here's the kicker. Familiar isn't always good. Comfort isn't always safe. Rest isn't always earned. The drag is your invitation to prove who's actually in charge, your goals or your impulses. 4. What actually happens to you in the dip? Let's keep it real. Most people think discipline is only mental, but there are actual changes happening to your body and brain during this phase. Your dopamine resets. That initial excitement spike fades. Your brain stops rewarding you for starting and waits to see if you'll stick around. You're building neural pathways. Habits are physical networks in your brain. Imagine carving a new road through thick forest. It's slow, it's messy, but every step makes it clearer. Your identity is shifting. You're not just doing a disciplined action. You're becoming a disciplined person. Identity building always feels awkward before it feels natural. Your resistance is actually a signal of progress. If it feels hard, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're in the process. 5. The disciplined DNA formula. There's something powerful about repeating actions even when you don't feel like it. It literally changes how you see yourself. Here are the 3 pillars that make up what I call disciplined DNA. 1. Non-negotiables. These are your no-matter-what behaviors. Small, simple, automatic, the kind you can do at your worst. It's not about intensity, it's about continuity. 2. Friction handling. Not avoiding obstacles, but learning to manage them. You don't need to eliminate distractions. You need to reduce their access to your attention. You're not fighting the world. You're redirecting yourself. 3. Emotional neutrality. Real discipline isn't dramatic. It's boring. It's showing up without waiting for a lightning bolt of motivation. Emotion says, I don't feel like it. Discipline says, that's cool, but we're doing it anyway. 6. The dip is where you're forged. Anyone can start. Anyone can feel excited on day 1. Anyone can post about being locked in. But only a small group walks through the drag, sticks with the routine, and stays when it's no longer fun. Those people, they're made in Chapter 4, in the quiet, slow, unglamorous dip. That's where your discipline becomes real. Not loud, not flashy, but permanent. 7. Your new reality. Once you push through this phase, something strange happens. Tasks that felt heavy start feeling normal. Habits that felt forced start feeling automatic. Goals that felt far suddenly feel possible. You realize something important? The dip didn't block you. It built you. Chapter 5. When the world doesn't clap, the silent grind. There's a point in every discipline journey where you realize something almost disappointing. Nobody is watching. Nobody is cheering. Nobody is impressed. And at first, it feels unfair. You're showing up. You're trying. You're fighting old habits. You're choosing the harder option. You're putting in the hours. But the world stays quiet. No applause. No instant results. No recognition. Just silence. This chapter is about that exact moment. The moment where your progress becomes invisible and discipline becomes something you do without witnesses. This is where most people break, and where the strong learn to bloom in the dark. 1. Expecting noise from a quiet process. Humans are wired for validation. It's natural. When we do something good, the brain shoots out a little dopamine hit when someone notices. But discipline, real discipline, it grows in an environment where dopamine is scarce. When you start a new habit, people might praise the new you, but eventually they go back to their own lives. The novelty disappears. The compliments slow down. The energy around your change fades. And guess what? This is the moment people confuse with failure. They think silence means they're not getting better. But silence is simply the world giving you space to grow roots. Trees don't get applause for growing underground, but that's exactly what keeps them standing in storms. 2. The invisible progress phase. This is the weirdest, most misunderstood stage of personal growth. You're doing the work. but you don't look different yet. Nothing external has changed. Your life doesn't have that movie montage glow. So you start doubting. What's the point? Is this working? Am I built for this? But here's the truth. Progress always happens internally before it shows externally. Strength comes before muscle. Clarity comes before success. Discipline comes before results. You don't see the change, but you feel the shift. Your excuses get quieter. Your focus lasts a little longer. Your mood stabilizes. Your mind becomes cleaner. Your habits feel less forced. These aren't small wins. They're foundational ones. 3. The loneliness of leveling up. It's normal to feel lonely when you start leveling up. Why? Because most environments are built for comfort, not growth. Most friend groups are built around habits, not goals. Most routines are built around pleasure, not discipline. So when you start shifting, you naturally drift away from the old rhythm of your life. You're not weird. You're evolving. And evolution is a solo sport. The people around you won't understand why you're sleeping earlier, why you're focusing more, why you're cutting out distractions, why you're eliminating time wasters, why you're suddenly serious about yourself. But listen, you're not doing this for them. Your discipline is not a performance. It's a transformation. For discipline without applause, the hardest kind. Anybody can stay disciplined when they're being watched. That's external accountability. But self-discipline is when you keep your promises with zero witnesses. It's not sexy. It's not loud. It's not social media friendly. It's waking up earlier, even though nobody will congratulate you. It's practicing your craft, even though nobody will see the work. It's choosing healthier actions, even though nobody is tracking you. This is the kind of discipline that builds legends, the silent type. The kind where you don't brag. You don't announce. You don't need to be seen. You just do the work privately. 5. The science of the silent grind. Here's what's actually happening inside you during this invisible phase. Your brain is strengthening identity circuits. You're becoming someone who trusts themselves. Your self-concept is leveling up. Your discipline becomes automatic. By repeating actions in silence, you're convincing your brain that this is who we are now, not just what we're trying to do. You develop quiet confidence. Not the loud, I'm motivated, energy, but the grounded, I can rely on myself, energy. This is the kind of confidence that doesn't need validation. It doesn't brag. It doesn't compare. It doesn't crumble under pressure. It's the real thing. 6. Why results come after respecting the silence. There's a rule in growth. You must harvest discipline before you harvest results. Meaning, if you can't handle a season with no applause, you're not ready for the season where results pour in. Silence is a training phase. It teaches patience, consistency, resilience, emotional control, self-trust, focus. When results finally show up, you'll appreciate them more because you earned them quietly. 7. Your discipline is about to get stronger. Something powerful happens when you stop expecting applause. You stop performing and start transforming. You're no longer trying to impress people. You're not seeking validation. You're not waiting to be noticed. You're simply building yourself. And the world always notices a person who has built themselves, eventually. But by the time they do, you won't need their applause anymore, because you'll have built something better. Self-respect. Chapter 6. The breakthrough nobody sees, the moment your mind quietly turns. Every discipline journey has a turning point. Not a dramatic one, not a movie scene revelation, just a quiet shift inside you, so subtle you almost miss it. This chapter is about that moment. The moment when discipline stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like your baseline. You won't hear a sound when it happens. There's no internal fireworks, no sudden motivation spike, no magical burst of energy. It's quiet, almost boring, but incredibly powerful. And if you're patient long enough, disciplined long enough, consistent long enough, you will hit this shift. Let's break it down. 1. The unexpected moment when discipline stops hurting. People think the hardest part of discipline is the first day. Wrong. The hardest part is the stretch in the middle. When you're too far to turn back, but not far enough to see results. That's the desert. And then, out of nowhere, something strange happens. The resistance weakens. Waking up early isn't a fight anymore. Eliminating distractions doesn't drain you. Choosing the harder option doesn't create internal drama. It's like your brain stops punching back. Because here's what actually happened. Your mind finally realized, we're really doing this. It stops negotiating. It stops arguing. It stops throwing excuses like confetti at you. This is the first quiet breakthrough. 2. When your brain switches from force to flow. At the beginning of a disciplined journey, everything is powered by force. Force to get up. Force to say no. Force to push through discomfort. Force, force, force. But humans aren't built to use force forever. It's exhausting. It burns out fast. What you want is flow. Flow is when your brain runs your habits without needing emotional permission. Flow is when you don't need motivation. You don't need hype. You don't need reminders. You don't need to convince yourself. You just do it. Flow doesn't feel heroic. It feels normal. And that's why most people don't recognize it when it arrives. 3. The day you stop arguing with yourself. One of the clearest signs you've leveled up is this. You stop bargaining with yourself. No more. Maybe I can skip today. No one will know if I take a break. I'll start again on Monday. I deserve a rest after a hard week. That internal debate you used to have every single day, gone. You don't argue with yourself about brushing your teeth because it's part of your identity. And the moment your disciplined habits fall into that same category, you've crossed into a new mental territory. You're operating from identity, not willpower. That's a breakthrough. 4. The invisible shift from external to internal. At some point, you stop doing things because you should. You start doing them because they feel aligned with who you are. This is the identity shift. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's more like this subtle sense of, yeah, this is just me now. You realize you're not fighting your old self anymore. You're building your new self. You no longer need praise, hype, accountability, reminders, pressure. Your internal compass is steering the ship. This is the deepest level of discipline, when the behavior becomes part of your character. 5. The moment it feels wrong not to show up. A wild thing happens once discipline becomes your identity. Missing a day feels uncomfortable. Skipping a habit feels off. Taking the easy way out feels wrong. Not because you're scared of failure. Not because you fear judgment. Not because you're chasing perfection. But because you've built a new internal ecosystem, and the old behaviors no longer fit. This is when you know you've crossed into a transformation. Your disciplined actions no longer drain energy. They give energy. That's when you truly become unstoppable. 6. The subtle signs you're breaking through. Here's what you notice when the quiet breakthrough hits. Your decisions become cleaner. There's less emotional noise. Your habits run without debate. You don't think about it. You act. You feel grounded. Not hyped. Not stressed. Just steady. Your environment starts matching your mindset. Your space, routines, priorities, they all naturally shift. You choose long-term over short-term without pain. Your future self starts driving the car. Self-respect rises. You trust yourself more without needing proof. These changes don't announce themselves. They whisper. But the impact? Massive. 7. Why this breakthrough changes everything. Most people quit right before this shift happens. They think discipline will feel like a battle forever. But they're wrong. The struggle is temporary. The identity is permanent. Once your mind shifts, your life shifts. You make decisions faster. You eliminate distractions naturally. You handle setbacks without spiraling. You stay consistent without forcing it. You feel in control of yourself for the first time in years. It's not motivation. It's not hype. It's not discipline as a performance. It's discipline as your default setting. And once you reach this level, you can build anything. Chapter 7. The Psychology of Friction. Why most people stay stuck. Before you can master influence, before you can guide decisions, Before you can elevate your presence in any room, you need to understand why most people never get there. It's not because they're not smart enough, not because they're not confident enough, not because they weren't born charismatic. The real enemy is something far more subtle. Friction. Invisible psychological friction that steers behavior, shapes perception, and blocks influence without anyone noticing. This chapter is about exposing that friction, how it works, why it controls people, and how you can remove it to become effortlessly influential. Not louder, not more charming, not more forceful, just smarter. Let's go deep. 1. Influence doesn't fail because of weak communication. It fails because of resistance. Every human mind is built with a protective mechanism, a mental shield. Whenever someone feels pushed, pressured, corrected, or threatened, even slightly, their brain activates resistance. Resistance says, "Who are you to tell me what to do? I already know this. I don't want to change. Let me think for myself. You're trying to manipulate me." And the moment resistance kicks in, influence dies. It doesn't matter how good your ideas are. It doesn't matter how logical your arguments are. It doesn't matter how right you are. People don't resist your message. They resist losing autonomy. This is friction at its purest. Once you understand that, you stop trying to push people and start guiding them. 2. The secret. Reduce psychological effort, and people follow naturally. Humans make choices based on one rule. We pick whatever feels easiest, not smartest, not wisest, not best for the long term, just easiest in the moment. Influence isn't about changing minds. It's about removing effort. Effort is friction, and most influence attempts fail because they increase effort. Examples: too many steps, too much thinking required, too much uncertainty, too much ego threat, too much emotional cost. Here's the truth. If you want someone to adopt an idea, make it feel effortless. Lower the cognitive barrier. Lower the emotional barrier. Lower the social barrier. Lower the identity barrier. When the path is smooth, people walk it. And the genius influencers? They don't push people down the path. They remove the obstacles. 3. The first layer of friction, cognitive overload. Humans are constantly fighting mental clutter. Notifications, unfinished tasks, multiple priorities, hidden fears, inner pressure. So when someone talks too much, explains too much, or overwhelms someone with information, the mind checks out. Influence dies instantly. To influence effortlessly, you do the opposite. Simple words, clean logic, clear options, fewer steps, bite-sized ideas, minimal explanation. The mind trusts clarity. Clarity reduces friction. You're not trying to sound smart. You're trying to make understanding easy. Because easy equals persuasive. 4. The second layer of friction, emotional threat. Even logical ideas get rejected if they trigger emotional discomfort. People resist when they feel judged, corrected, exposed, inferior, embarrassed, pressured, unsafe. This is why arguing rarely works. You could present facts, evidence, charts, statistics, and still fail. Influence is emotional before it's rational. So what do effortless influencers do? They create emotional safety. I get where you're coming from. You're not wrong. Here's another angle. Lots of people think this way. You're in control. I'm just giving you options. When someone feels safe, they lower their guard. And when the guard drops, influence begins. 5. The third layer of friction, identity conflict. This is the deepest friction of all. Every decision a person makes is filtered through identity. What kind of person am I? Does this fit who I believe I am? Will this make me look stupid or weak? Will this make me feel like a different person? If an idea threatens identity, it gets rejected instantly. This is why people cling to bad habits. This is why they defend bad opinions. This is why they resist change, even when they know they need it. You can't influence someone by attacking their identity, but you can influence them by expanding it. Here's the trick. Make the new idea feel consistent with who they already believe they are. Example, instead of, "You should start working out," say, "You strike me as someone who takes self-improvement seriously." Training fits that perfectly. Now you're protecting their identity, not threatening it. Influence becomes effortless. 6. The power move, guiding instead of forcing. You don't win influence by direct confrontation. You win by guiding someone to reach the conclusion themselves. When people believe an idea is theirs, they defend it. When they feel it's imposed, they reject it. Here's how you shift from forcing to guiding. Ask questions instead of giving directions. Have you considered, what's your goal with this? What do you think would happen if? Questions reduce friction. Commands multiply it. Offer options, not ultimatums. Here are 2 approaches. Which one feels better to you? Options create autonomy. Plan ideas subtly instead of preaching loudly. Something I found helpful was, a lot of people in your situation try. Subtlety is the language of influence. Led by example instead of explanation. People follow demonstrated behavior, not spoken instructions. When you remove the force, you remove the friction. And when friction disappears, influence becomes effortless. 7. Why this matters for your influence mastery. If you don't understand friction, every influence attempt will feel like pushing uphill, dragging people forward, fighting resistance, explaining yourself, failing to convince, feeling frustrated. But once you master friction, everything changes. People listen without defensiveness. People follow without pressure. People trust without suspicion. People agree without debate. People adopt your ideas without realizing why. This is quiet power, soft authority, invisible influence, the kind of influence that moves rooms, shifts decisions, and changes outcomes without ever raising your voice. Chapter 8. The Unspoken Signals, Mastering Nonverbal Influence. If Chapter 7 was about understanding friction in the mind, Chapter 8 is about controlling the signals that shape it. Because here's the truth. The most powerful influence isn't verbal. It's not the words you choose. It's not the speech you give. It's not the argument you present. Influence begins long before you open your mouth. People are already forming impressions, already deciding how to respond to you, already determining whether you're credible, trustworthy, confident, or uncertain. And all of this happens silently. Welcome to the world of nonverbal influence, the realm where subtle cues speak louder than charisma, and where small psychological signals shape massive outcomes. Let's dig deep. 1. The mind reads nonverbal signals before logic kicks in. The human brain is hardwired for rapid assessment. Before someone processes your words, they process your presence. Studies show that in the first few seconds, people are already evaluating. Are you confident? Are you safe? Are you competent? Are you socially aware? Are you someone to follow or ignore? This happens subconsciously, instantly, automatically. Your nonverbal cues operate like unconscious persuasion. They frame the entire interaction before you ever make a request, pitch an idea, or influence a decision. Influence becomes effortless not because of what you say, but because of what you silently signal. 2. The currency of influence, presence. Presence is not about being loud or dominant. It's about creating a psychological field around you that says, I am grounded. I am calm. I am aware. Here's the paradox. People trust calm more than charisma. Most people rush, perform, or scramble for approval. Their energy feels scattered and tense, which creates friction in the minds of others. But when someone walks into a room with stillness, everything changes. Presence suggests you aren't desperate. You're not seeking validation. You're not trying too hard. You're not easily threatened. You are internally stable, and people naturally gravitate towards stability. Your presence becomes a magnet. 3. The power of micro-behaviors, the small signals that decide everything. Effortless influence doesn't come from big gestures. It comes from microscopic, almost invisible behaviors that shape perception. Here are the nonverbal levers that matter most. Heavy check mark the pace of your movements. Fast equals anxious. Slow equals confident. Confident people take their time. They signal comfort with silence, space, and stillness. Heavy check mark your breathing rhythm. Shallow breathing equals tension. Steady breathing equals control. Others mirror your breathing subconsciously. When you breathe deeply, you silently calm the room. Heavy check mark your eye behavior. Not staring, not darting, just steady, relaxed attention. People read intention through your eyes before anything else. Heavy check mark the softening of your facial muscles. Tension in the jaw, forehead, eyes equals stress and defensiveness. Relaxed microexpressions equals trust and warmth. A relaxed face signals that you're not a threat. Heavy check mark your head position. Chin too high equals arrogance. Chin too low equals submission. Neutral equals confidence. Small? Yes, but the subconscious reads it instantly. Each micro-behavior is a vote, and they add up fast. 4. The silent language of space, proxemics. Influence is deeply tied to how you manage space. Standing too close, you trigger resistance. Standing too far, you signal disengagement. Entering a room too fast, you signal insecurity. Taking controlled, grounded steps, you project authority. The most influential people use space strategically. They don't invade. They don't withdraw. They occupy space calmly and deliberately. This signals sovereignty, not dominance, not submission. People respect those who appear comfortable in their own space. 5. Nonverbal warmth, the hidden accelerator of trust. The mistake people make is thinking influence comes from strength. In reality, influence comes from the combination of strength and warmth. Strength alone intimidates. Warmth alone lacks weight. But together, they create effortless influence. Warmth shows through open posture, soft eye contact, upward inflections at the right moments, subtle smiles, nodding to show understanding, orienting your body toward the person, mirroring subtly, not mimicking. Warmth is not about being nice. It's about making people feel psychologically safe. When people feel safe, they follow your lead. 6. The hidden influencer, energy tone. Every person emits a tone, not through voice, but through energy. You met people who feel frantic, chaotic, needy, aggressive, anxious, unsure, and you met others who feel grounded, deliberate, thoughtful, steady, composed. The brain picks up this energy instantly. Your energy communicates. Whether you believe in yourself, whether you believe in your message, whether you feel comfortable in the moment, whether you have internal certainty. And here's the magic. When your internal state is stable, other people stabilize around you. Your calm becomes their calm. Your certainty becomes their certainty. Your composure becomes their trust. That is effortless influence. 7. The art of letting silence do the work. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it, explain themselves, justify their ideas, or keep talking to avoid discomfort. But silence is a psychological weapon, a high-level influence tool. When you pause, people lean in, people reflect, people feel your presence more deeply, people perceive authority, people take your words more seriously. Silence communicates confidence more loudly than words ever could. It says, I don't need to force this. I'm in control of my pace. I trust my position. Great influencers don't rush. They create space. 8. Your body as a mirror, becoming the emotional anchor. People unconsciously mirror the emotional state of whoever seems most grounded. If you bring anxiety into a conversation, the room absorbs it. If you bring calm, the room absorbs that instead. If you bring clarity, others borrow your clarity. Your body becomes a psychological anchor for stability, for trust, for confidence, for direction. This is why true influence isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. Your inner state becomes your outer influence. 9. Why nonverbal influence matters more than ever. In a world flooded with noise, endless messages, endless content, endless talking, the ones who stand out aren't the loudest. They're the ones whose presence communicates. Stability, thoughtfulness, confidence, emotional intelligence, internal alignment, quiet strength. These qualities cut through chaos. People notice them instantly. People trust them instinctively. This is influence without effort, impact without theatrics, power without performance. This is the kind of influence that doesn't fade. It compounds. It builds reputation. It builds authority. It builds loyalty. You don't just influence people for a moment. You influence them long-term. Chapter 9. The power of micro-shifts, the small wins that change everything. Big transformations don't actually start big. They end big. Most people imagine discipline as this dramatic, overnight switch. One day you're inconsistent, distracted, overwhelmed, and then suddenly you flip a mental breaker and wake up as this unstoppable, hyper-focused machine. Real life? Nah, change almost never works like that. It comes from micro-shifts, tiny adjustments, barely noticeable in the moment, but huge in their long-term compounding effect. This chapter is about understanding, using, and mastering those micro-shifts so you stop burning out, stop quitting halfway, and start seeing progress stack like interest. 1. Why micro-shifts work when big change fails. When someone tries to overhaul their entire life at once, they usually fall into one of two traps. Trap 1, overload. You try to build 10 habits at once. Wake up earlier. Eat healthy. Study. Gym. Meditate. Read. Your brain goes, bro, slow down. You get overwhelmed and fall off. Trap 2, perfectionism. You miss one day and instantly feel like you ruined everything. So instead of continuing, you restart again and again. Micro-shifts avoid both traps because they don't shock your system. They require almost no willpower. They build momentum instead of stress. They're small. They're doable. They're sustainable. And discipline loves sustainability. 2. The science behind micro-shifts. Your brain loves tiny wins. Your brain works heavily on reward loops. Each time you complete a tiny task, you get a small hit of dopamine. Your brain labels the behavior as worth repeating. Your confidence increases. Your discipline strengthens. The win may be small, but the identity impact is massive. Instead of saying, I must become disciplined, your brain starts saying, wait, maybe I'm disciplined. That's the whole game. 3. Real examples of micro-shifts that actually work. The 5% rule. Don't try to double your effort. Try to increase it by 5%. Study 5% longer. Train 5% harder. Wake up 5% earlier. Work 5% more focused. Small enough that you won't resist. Big enough that it compounds. B. The one more principle. Whenever you're about to quit, do one more. One more push-up. One more page. One more minute of focus. One more repetition of discipline. One more is the most underestimated superpower. C. Microenvironments. Instead of fixing your entire room, fix one part that will improve your discipline. Clear your desk. Remove one distraction. Prepare tomorrow's clothes. Place your book where you'll see it. Small change, big effect on behavior. 4. The identity shift. Become the person who tries. The biggest benefit of micro-shifts isn't the action. It's the identity transformation. Because eventually you stop saying, I'll try to be consistent, and start saying, I'm someone who shows up. Even if the action is tiny, the identity upgrade is huge. This is why small wins matter. 5 minutes of reading makes you a reader. One workout makes you someone who trains. One clean corner makes you someone who cares about their environment. One completed task makes you someone who finishes what they start. Discipline becomes part of who you are, not something you're forcing. 5. The momentum loop. where everything accelerates. Micro shifts create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence makes bigger habits easier. Suddenly, you're not struggling to stay disciplined. You're struggling to slow down. Here's how the momentum loop works. Do something tiny. Your brain rewards you. You feel good about yourself. You want to do more. Your habits grow naturally. You keep winning. Discipline becomes automatic. The loop becomes self-sustaining. This is why the hardest part of discipline is just starting. After that, the system takes over. 6. The 24-hour micro-shift test. You could transform any day, even a bad one, with one tiny shift. Ask yourself, what is one small thing I can do today that my future self will thank me for? Maybe it's drinking a glass of water, doing 10 push-ups, cleaning your workspace, writing one paragraph, meditating for 2 minutes, planning tomorrow. It doesn't matter how tiny it is. What matters is that it breaks the cycle of nothing. One micro shift can save an entire day, and a series of micro shifts can save an entire life direction. 7. The compound effect of micro-discipline. Here's the wild part. Tiny efforts don't add up, they multiply. 10 small improvements equals noticeable change. 100 small improvements equals new lifestyle. 1,000 small improvements equals unrecognizable version of you. The person you want to become is built through repetition, not revolution. The big transformation moment everyone waits for, it never comes. The small daily shift you repeat, that's the transformation. 8. Mastering micro shifts. Your 2 rules. Rule 1. Make it so small you can't say no. If your goal feels heavy, shrink it. Shrink it again. Shrink it until resistance disappears. Rule 2. Repeat it daily. You don't need massive discipline. You just need consistent mini-discipline. 9. When micro shifts turn into macro wins. At some point, you'll look back and realize you're more focused, you're more disciplined, you're more confident, you're more in control. You're becoming the version of yourself you wished for, not because of massive change, but because of tiny daily actions you didn't quit. Micro shifts build unstoppable people. Chapter 10. Rewriting your self-image, the hidden engine of discipline. By now, you've learned strategies, systems, habits, micro shifts. But here's the truth most people never realize. You can't sustain the behavior of someone you don't believe yourself to be. That's the heart of Chapter 10. Your identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are, is the foundation that all discipline stands on. If that foundation is shaky, everything you build will eventually collapse. If you want lasting discipline, you must rewrite the way you see yourself. This chapter is about rebuilding the inner blueprint that controls every outer action. 1. Your self-image, the silent boss behind all your decisions. Every decision you make, every habit you keep or quit, every effort you put in, they all pass through one invisible filter. Your self-image. It answers questions for you without you even noticing. Is this something someone like me does? Do I deserve this level of success? Am I capable of following through? Is this goal too big for me? And if your self-image says no, then everything else in your life becomes a battle. That's why people start strong but fall off. Their actions were new, but their identity was still old. You can't out-discipline a self-image that says you're inconsistent. You must change the identity first. 2. Where your old self-image comes from. Your current self-image isn't something you consciously built. It was shaped by childhood conversations, school experiences, failure moments, random comments that stuck, social comparison, past habits, past weaknesses, times you quit, times you were judged, times you felt small. You didn't choose it. It formed itself through repetition and emotion. But now you're older, more aware, more intentional, and the self-image that controlled your past does not have to control your future. 3. The identity loop. How beliefs become reality. Your identity creates your behavior. Your behavior reinforces your identity. Your identity strengthens your habits. Your habits confirm your identity. It's a loop, the most powerful loop in your life. Here's the breakdown. You believe something about yourself. I'm not consistent. You act according to that belief. You procrastinate or quit early. Your behavior creates results. You don't make progress. Those results strengthen the original belief. See, I knew I wasn't consistent. This is how people get stuck. But guess what? This loop works in reverse too. And that's where the magic is. 4. The reverse identity loop. How to rewrite everything. If you want to break the cycle, you don't need motivation, hype, or giant discipline. All you need is small actions that challenge the old identity. Example, old identity, I can't focus. New action, 5 minutes of pure focus. New evidence, wait, I can focus even if it's small. New belief, maybe I have control after all. New identity, I'm becoming a focused person. Identity changes not through huge wins, but through small, consistent evidence. Every tiny victory rewires the loop. 5. The identity gap, where most people lose discipline. When a version of you today doesn't match the version of you you're trying to become, the gap creates friction. This friction feels like resistance, procrastination, self-doubt, laziness, overwhelm, inconsistency. It's not because you're weak. It's because your identity hasn't caught up with your goals. To close the identity gap, don't aim to act like the perfect version of yourself. Aim to act like the slightly better version of yourself. Not 10 steps ahead, just one. That's how identity grows. 6. The 3 levels of identity transformation. There are 3 levels to changing who you are. Level 1, behavior change. What should I do? Work out, study, wake up early. Most people get stuck here. Level 2, systems change. What should I use to do it? Routines, schedules, habit trackers. Better, but still incomplete. Level 3, identity change. Who am I becoming? This is the level where everything shifts. When you start saying, I'm someone who finishes things. I'm someone who takes action. I'm someone who stays consistent. Your actions begin to match automatically. Identity drives discipline, not the other way around. 7. The identity script rewrite exercise. Here's a powerful exercise to reshape your self-image, and you only need 60 seconds. Complete these 3 sentences. The old me was someone who. Describe the habits you're leaving behind. The new me is someone who. Describe the habits you're building now. The future me will be someone who. Describe the identity you're stepping into. This is not vague manifestation. This is psychological reframing, rewriting the mental script your brain relies on. When repeated daily, it shifts your identity from the inside out. 8. Identity requires evidence, not perfection. Identity doesn't come from doing everything perfectly. It comes from showing up consistently, even in small ways. You don't need flawless days, perfect streaks, extreme discipline. You just need evidence. 2 minutes, 1 task, 1 win, 1 moment of effort. Identity is built from patterns, not perfection. 9. When your self-image finally switches, there will come a point, and it always happens quietly, when your brain stops saying, I have to be disciplined today, and starts saying, this is just what I do. You stop forcing. You start flowing. That's when discipline becomes effortless. You become more confident, more consistent, more resilient, more self-controlled, more aligned, more powerful. You're no longer fighting your old self. You're embodying your evolved self. 10. The final truth. Your identity shapes your destiny. Everything you want, success, discipline, self-respect, growth, begins at the identity level. Behavior follows identity. Habits follow identity. Progress follows identity. Your entire life follows identity. Rewrite the story you tell yourself, and you rewrite your future. Discipline becomes natural. Growth becomes automatic. Success becomes inevitable. This is the real transformation.